Welcome to the Possibility Action Network podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton, aka Possibility Man. We're committed to bringing you guests who strive to better people's lives and serve as a force for good in the world. Our guest today is Brad Walsh. He's the host of the EMPOWEROGRAPHY podcast, which features phenomenal female influencers making a positive difference for others globally. In each episode, Brad explores the experiences and stories of these remarkable individuals, offering listeners insight and inspiration into what it means to be an empowered woman. Brad Walsh, welcome to the show today.
I am so happy to be here, Stephen. Thank you so very much for this incredible opportunity to share a little bit about the work I do, my story, my journey, and just be here on your platform. It's awesome to chat with you.
Look, I'm looking forward to this conversation. But first, a reminder to our listeners and our viewers, follow, like, and share this podcast wherever you find it. Your support matters. You know, podcasters, Brad, say this all the time, but your support matters and is appreciated. Hey, Brad, my first question out
Yes.
the gate, because you seem to have a knack for coining words. And, you know, there are two of them that just strikes me. One is visualphoria,
Yep.
Visualphoria, Visualphoria photography. How did
Yes.
you come up with that? And can you tell us a little bit about Visualphoria?
Yeah. So Visuphoria was born at, it came again, it was created of two words. So visual, of course, being a photographer, and then euphoria, the images. That is the emotion that I wanted to create when someone looks at an image I create, they get a euphoric feeling. It makes them
Oh,
feel good. It gives them that feeling of euphoria when they see my work, my photography work. So I just blended the two words of visual and euphoria together, and Visuphoria was born.
yeah. Do you remember at what point those two words came together for you? Because it's quite unique. Let me say this. Whenever I see unique constructions like that,
Mhm.
it gives me the feeling that it comes from a place beyond the physical. When did you get that inspiration, Visualphoria, if you recall?
That was that probably came. I created the company. The company is about 12 or 13 years old now. So about 12
Oh,
years ago, I downloaded into my head. And you know what's funny,
yeah.
Stephen, is when I started using that word and sharing that word with friends before I actually put it out there to the world, I got a lot of feedback saying that's too hard to remember. That's too hard to say. Do you really want to do that? You should keep it very simple so that people remember it. And I thought, well, Visuphoria is a unique word. Yes, it could be hard to say for some people, but I think that is something that people will remember because it's so unique. So
Yeah.
people telling me I shouldn't use it, I just thought, no, if people are telling me not to use it, I'm going to use it.
Yeah, that's great. Now, you said something interesting a moment ago. You said when it downloaded into your head.
Mhm.
What did you
Mhm.
mean by that?
Spiritually guided. It just came to me.
Yeah. Okay.
It was
Yeah.
downloaded to me. It just came to me
Yeah.
through spirit, through guides.
Yeah. I tell you what, unique words like that always gives me that clue that it's
Yeah.
coming from a place beyond the physical. And then you came up with another one, empowerography. Whoa.
Yes.
Yeah.
That one was again, I downloaded.
Mm,
I came up with that one just over 4 years ago. And again,
yeah.
it ties in my photography work because storytelling is a big part of who I am, visual storyteller. And then with the podcast, pulling stories out of people. So telling stories with the platform. And because the photography work that I do is all about empowering women, and which then led into the creation of the podcast platform, which again is empowering women through elevating them and amplifying their voices, I thought, well, I am a photographer. Photography is part of my DNA. It's who I am.
Mm.
I've been a photographer since I was 17. I took photography in high school and it's just become part of who I am. It's my first love, my first passion. And so I thought, why not blend the two words, empowerment, shorten it, and then photography. So let's put them together and create this other word, empowerography. So it ties in my photography and it ties in the empowerment of women. And that's how I came
Yeah,
up with it.
I like it. I like it. Look, clearly this is more than just you're doing more than because I checked out your podcast by the way, and
Thank
it's
you.
excellent. So you're
Thank
doing
you.
more than just conducting interviews. Clearly, this
Yeah.
is a passion for you. And I'm curious about, when did you discover this, that this was something that was in your soul?
Yeah. Well, it's like I said, it's everything started with the photography. The photography was
Mm,
the catalyst for everything. Like I said, I've been shooting since I was 17, but it got to a point I ended up working in corporate for 12 and a half years as an audiovisual technician. And through that, I was introduced, I was connected with a mutual friend. And so he introduced me to a photographer that was based in Florida who was doing boudoir photography. Now, I had never heard of it before. I had only seen her work, this mutual friend, the one that he introduced me to. I've only seen her work online. I didn't have any idea of what it was all about. And we got connected, had multiple conversations. I fell in love with her work and the message and the mission behind that genre of photography with what you can help women accomplish in terms of body acceptance, self-love, self-confidence. And excuse me, I ended up mentoring with this woman for 6 months. And when I finished that mentorship, it was just one of those light bulb moments. I just knew that that's what I've got to do with my photography businesses,
mm,
move forward with empowering women through photography, which then, of course, led into the podcast at because at a
mm,
point I was 2 years into my business full time after I left corporate. And it started to feel like I wanted to reach more people. I wanted to have a bigger impact in the world. The photography was great. Like I said, it's my first love, my first passion. I love being able to give that gift of showing women themselves in a light that they don't normally get to see themselves in, but also the gift
mm,
of transformation. But it started to feel like there wasn't enough of an impact there.
mm,
So I thought, why don't I take the values and the mission and the purpose of the work I'm doing through the photography and transplant that into a podcast? And at the time, and even now, I don't know of any platforms that are solely that are
mm.
hosted by a man solely
Yeah,
focused on elevating and amplifying the voices of women. So I thought this is a great way to carve out my own little niche in the podcasting world
yeah,
as well
yeah.
as providing a platform for women to share their stories. So I reached out to 7 or 8 friends of mine, women who are photographers and makeup artists, and
Mm,
I explained what my idea was behind the platform. And I asked them if they would if they would help me get it off the ground by letting me interview them. Thankfully, they all agreed. I did the interviews, I created the content. I call that my dress rehearsal because I only released 8 episodes at that time. And what happened was my photography business started to pick up traction. I was getting more inquiries and more bookings. And I thought, well, I left corporate for a reason. I've got to shift my focus back to the business, put all of my energy and my time there. So I shelved the
mm,
whole podcast idea and put my focus back to the business. We then, of course, fast forward to March of 2020. We know what happened around the world at that
yeah.
time. It rendered my business inoperable. I couldn't be booking photo shoots. So I thought, I got two choices here. I can either sit around and complain about what's going on in the world, like so many other people were doing, or I could look at the situation as a gift and take advantage of that gift of time and create
Mm,
something good, put something positive out into the world. So I thought, why not reignite the podcast? I can't do anything right now. So I started reaching out to
mm,
women on Instagram and explaining the idea behind the platform. And Stephen, the response was incredible. Women were so happy to hear that a man had created a platform such as this
mm,
to help elevate women and amplify their
mm,
voices that it turned into this thing where the women I was interviewing were saying, Brad, I've got a friend, I'll connect you with her. Brad, I know
mm,
someone should be a great guest, to where we
mm.
now have this beautiful community of almost 1,500 women who are part of this
Wow.
platform. And I know now, without a shadow of a doubt, with all of my heart and soul, this is
Mm.
my purpose. This is why I was put here on this planet, is to do this work to help elevate women and amplify their voices through sharing their stories. And it's been an incredible journey.
That's great. Look, but you said it earlier. You're a man operating in a space
Hmm.
where you're interviewing women.
Yeah.
What is that? What is that like for you? And did you have any reservations about this? And what is it like for you?
No, I didn't have any reservation because I was
Yeah.
raised by women. I was brought up around women. My mom and my grandmother raised me. So my biological father wasn't in the picture. So I was always around women. So that is just natural. And then of course I'm married and I have 2 daughters. So I grew up, I'm in a house full of women. I'm surrounded by women all the time. So
Mm,
there was no reservations whatsoever. It
mm,
just it just came natural. I love hearing these stories from these women who are doing such incredible things around the world. I pull inspiration from every single woman that I
Yeah.
speak with. I've found myself when I'm interviewing some of these women in the conversation, I'm thinking in my head, as they're telling their stories, I'm thinking, how are you even still standing after
Mm,
what you've been through and
mm,
come out the other side? It is so inspiring, Stephen. I absolutely
yeah.
love that I get to do this and to be able to help share these stories with the hopes of helping, reaching, and inspiring as many women as we possibly can together. That's that's just an incredible gift to be able to give that to others and to help
Yeah. Yeah.
inspire and maybe prevent women from having to go through similar things that these women I'm interviewing have been
Yeah.
through.
Yeah, it works. I mean, I like it for sure. But I can imagine though, let's think about sports. Let's say
Hmm.
that there's an NBA coach
Yeah.
who never played in the NBA. I think Miami may have a coach like that. Don't recall his
Hmm.
name. Never played in the NBA, and I can imagine some players saying, "Hey, look, you don't have the creds for this. What are you doing trying to coach me? Have you had any of that going on around you?"
Well, I've had a lot of women wonder, like, why is a man empowering women? Like, what's the story here? What's the angle? I've
Yeah.
had some women think, oh, there's got to be an angle to this. What's he hoping to get out of this? But once they speak with me and they learn about my story, my origin story, how this all began, and
Mm,
what actions in my life led to this, then they understand. They see, okay, now it makes sense. I get it.
yeah.
But resistance, there hasn't really been very much. It's actually been quite encouraging, if I'm
Yeah.
being honest.
Yeah.
The women, when, like I said, when they find out my story, like, yes, that makes total sense, and I love and they love the work that I'm doing.
Yeah, no wonder you're flourishing. You are the lone wolf in that arena as a
Yeah.
man. Hey, look here. Let me ask you this now.
Sure.
So your purpose is pretty clear from what I could tell.
Yeah.
That is, you say that you want to empower, elevate, and educate. Let's
Yes.
start with the first one, with the last one. Educate. How do you try to educate uh, people? Because I learned
Mhm.
something as a man when I listened to your podcast. Um, what do what kinds of things are on your mind when you think about educating listeners who visit your podcast?
It's about educating them through the stories that we
Mm,
tell together that I help to facilitate or help bring out of my guests. Because what I do is I create a list of questions based on my guest bio. So each set of questions is different for each guest. And those questions are created to pull their story out of them, to educate the audience that is listening so that hopefully they can get some value out of this woman's story, what she's been through or what she's managed to accomplish. It's about,
mm,
again, helping, reaching, and inspiring as many women as we can through sharing these women's stories who come on the show. And it's also, I guess, demonstrating in a way or giving a permission slip for other women to know that, hey, it's okay to share your story. We all have a story and we all need
yeah.
to share that story. So
Mhm.
that's where the education piece comes in.
Okay. And the second one, and I
Hmm.
think I got it right in your purpose is, well, it's the second for sure. Elevate. I like that.
Yes.
So when you thought about your purpose and you're coming up, you got three clear words here. Elevate. What
Hmm.
what what is your intention around that word?
To elevate, I think to elevate women to know that it's okay to share their stories, that they have a voice and they need to share,
Mm,
they need to use their voice to share their stories. So elevating them to that level where they believe in themselves enough, they dig down and find the courage and the strength within to elevate themselves enough to pull their story out of them, to share their story. Again,
yeah.
tying into the education piece so that we can share the story to help educate other women out there.
Yeah. And the third one is the
Hmm.
first on your list. I
Yeah.
reversed the order. And
Yeah.
I like this word,
Hmm. Yeah.
empowerment. It also, for me, touches on transformation or on
Yes.
what's those kinds of things. So, what are you trying to get at there when you
Em-
think about that word and in your conversations with your guests?
Empowering, believing in someone, giving someone the
Mm,
strength and the courage to stand up and to
mm,
believe in themselves, to help pull them up. Because we all need help. We all need support. We
mm,
can't do this thing called life alone. We can't do this thing called entrepreneurship alone. So it's about helping to lift someone up, to believe in
Yeah.
themselves, and to have the courage and the strength to stand up.
Yeah, yeah, and I tell you what, your guests clearly are people who are doing that. So Brad, when you think about, and I know you're also a podcast coach. We'll talk about that
Yep.
a little later. That you coach
Yeah.
people around podcasting.
Hmm.
We'll talk about that later. But I want to ask you this question: when you go about selecting a guest,
Hmm.
are you thinking topic first? Or are you thinking personality first? That is the
Personality
individual.
first.
You are.
Personality
Yeah.
first. There has to be a connection there between my guests and I. We have to be able to converse, hold a conversation. We have to
Yeah,
vibe with each other, and the
yeah,
story has to be there. They have to be
yeah.
willing to share their story. That's what it's
Uh-huh.
about. The main focus of the platform is sharing the stories of these women and putting them out into the world. So it's about that connection. It's about the relatability. If we can hold a
Yeah.
conversation and we connect on a different level, then
Mhm.
yeah, absolutely. I want to share your story. I want to help you get your story out into the world. There's so many women out there who are doing incredible things that don't have a platform. So I want to
Yeah.
be that platform to share what you're doing with the world. The world deserves to hear about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, and I like it that, I mean, this is a diverse list of topics that I've seen. You've interviewed nannies, you've interviewed
Yeah.
scientists. I mean,
Yeah.
authors. So, do you have any restrictions in terms of topics, or
No.
is it just that you're looking at the guests and what they bring to the table?
Yeah, there's no restriction on topics. Any
Mm,
topic, there's no topics off limits, but it's about bringing their story out and
mm,
connecting with them and sharing that, putting out to the world what they're doing. So
mhm.
no, there's no restrictions at all.
Okay. Now I want to dig into a few things
Sure.
globally about your guests. I want to play a little
Hmm.
game with you, okay? So I'm
Yeah,
going to ask you some questions.
sure.
What I want to get at here, so that the audience will know, I'm going to ask Brad questions about what he's learning from his guests and what he's learning about life. Also, of course, from his guests. So this his podcast is not just featuring people to tell good stories, but the things we learn from that great Brad. So
Hmm.
I want to get into what you're learning, okay,
Sure.
from your guests, from some of the
Hmm.
things that I've seen you talk about. The
Hmm.
first one, Brad Walsh, is forgiveness. I'm not going to ask you about a specific podcast, but what are you learning from your guests about forgiveness?
Forgiveness is
Yeah.
huge. I mean, that is something that we all need to learn to bring into our lives. Forgiveness, what I've learned is not the forgiveness isn't for the person who has done
Mm,
wrong to you or who has slighted you or who has harmed you. The forgiveness is for you so that you
yeah.
can lift that weight off your shoulders and move forward. They don't know. That person doesn't even know that you've forgiven them. So the forgiveness is for you to help free
Yeah.
you so you can move forward.
Hmm. Do you recall, and I'm not going to ask you the name, but do you recall the conversation you had with the guests who talked about forgiveness? Now, I'm not going to ask you the name, just wondering if you recall the conversation
There's been I've had it about
a few
forgiveness with a
times.
few guests. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm. Okay, so what about well-being? Well-being. What are you
Mm.
learning about well-being? In fact,
Well-being, we need
while you're thinking about it, the guests that I'm thinking about
yeah.
talk about both forgiveness and well-being, but I just broke them apart. So, yeah.
Well-being is integral to our own mental health, our own
Mm,
health. We have to invest in ourselves. And when I say invest, I'm not even talking about money. I'm talking about
mm,
invest time in ourselves. We have to be able to love ourselves. We have to be able to forgive ourselves. We
mm.
have to be able to trust in ourselves. That all ties into the well-being. Everything, I believe everything starts here at home with us. We are the foundation for all of it. If we're not looking after our own well-being, how are we going to do anything in this world for anybody else?
Yeah.
I mean, what we're here to do on this planet is to be in and of service to one another. But if you're not being in and of service to yourself, how can you be in and of service to anybody else? You have to look after your own well-being first.
Yeah. You mentioned the word mental health in
Hmm.
connection with well-being. And you're a podcast host, you interview guests from around the world. And,
Hmm.
you know, around the world, in fact, we're in the United States, for those of you who are in other countries, continents. And in May, when this interview is taking place, Brad, this is Mental Health Awareness
Mm,
Month in the
yes.
United States. I'm not sure, do you all in Canada do this kind of thing?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, what are your thoughts? I mean, how are your guests helping us, becoming aware of the importance of self-care, but also caring for each other?
I think it's through conversation. I believe that conversation, what you're doing, Stephen, as a podcast host, what I do as a podcast host is conversation. Conversation,
Yeah.
in my opinion, is the catalyst for change. And
Mm,
things need to change around the whole mental health world. We don't talk about it enough. Now, it is being brought to the forefront a lot more than it
mm,
used to be, but I think we still need to continue having those conversations to make it more normalized because I don't think it's still,
yeah.
I still don't think it's normalized yet. People, there's still shame around it. And I
Hmm.
think that if we talk about it more and we have those conversations, that's how things are going to start to change. That's how we're going to be able to move forward. If we don't have those difficult conversations, nothing's going to change. We need to
Yeah.
bring the conversation to the forefront.
Yeah. From your experience and just your awareness of the world,
Mhm.
do you think it's easier for women to talk about mental health than men?
Yes, for sure. 100%. Because men are
Why do you
taught,
think that's the
men,
case? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
because men are taught, we're conditioned when we're being brought up as
Yeah.
boys that you don't share your feelings, you don't talk about certain things, you don't show your emotions. That's you're acting like a little girl if you do that. Girls
Yeah.
don't, or boys don't cry. Boys don't
Yeah.
show their emotions. You got to put on your big boy pants and be a man. So
Yeah.
it all goes back to our conditioning when we're being brought up as boys, I think. And
Right.
then
Right.
obviously that conditioning is deep in us, so it's very hard to change it. So yeah, absolutely. I think it's much easier for women, it generally speaking,
Generally,
to
yes,
talk about
indeed,
that stuff
indeed.
for sure.
Sure, sure. And
Absolutely.
there are outliers for sure. But okay.
Yeah.
All right, look, here are a couple of others. And I like these because, I mean, you talk with your guests about some topics that I care about.
Yep.
And another one is resilience. At least it
Mm.
came up for the guests. And now I'm trying to figure out what you're learning from the people that you talk to. So resilience. What are you learning?
It takes strength, it takes courage. I mean, like I said, some of these women, the things they have been through, they have demonstrated, they have embodied resilience to keep moving forward, to not give up, to not be defeated by or defined by your experiences. Those don't define you. So when you make that agreement with yourself to believe in yourself and to dust yourself off and pick yourself up and keep going after a failure, after whatever it is you're going through, that's
Mhm.
resilience. You have the belief in yourself to keep going and keep moving forward. That takes strength,
Yeah.
that takes courage and resilience. It's so important.
Yeah. I heard one of your guests talk about resilience, and she used two examples from the United States, high profile women. One was Hillary
Hmm.
Clinton, and the
Yeah.
other was Martha Stewart. I'm not sure if you recall those stories, but any insights into what she might have been alluding to in terms of those women demonstrating resilience?
Yeah, I think what they had been through, I mean, what
Yeah.
they the trials and tribulations of life,
Yeah.
how it beat them down, but they did not let that keep them down.
Yeah.
Those experiences didn't define them. They picked
Right.
themselves up, got back up, and kept going. And what they have gone through and managed to come through and are still going and putting and doing good things out in the world. That's
Mhm.
resilience.
Yeah, I tell you, I mean, life can beat you down, but the big question is, are you going to get up today? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Another one that I love from your conversations with your guests is the positive mindset. What's that about? Positive mindset.
Mindset is everything.
Mm, mm,
If you haven't got that positive mindset or that mindset to believe in yourself, the confidence and to believe in your abilities, you're not going to be able to do anything. If you're
mm,
stuck in the negative mindset, you're not going to go anywhere. You're going to stay stuck in that
yeah,
mud, stay stuck in that situation. You're not going to be able to move forward. Positive mindset, having a positive mindset, having an abundant mindset is key to life, to everything, to being
mm,
successful, to believing in yourself. You have to believe in
yeah.
yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, how is anyone else going to believe in you?
Oh my gosh, that's so true. That is so true. Hey, look here, but here's one that I love because we all have narratives.
Hmm.
Someone may have the story of, I've failed in everything. And that's the story they tell all the time. Or someone may say,
Hmm.
I grew up in Appalachia in the United States. And that's the story that they tell all the time. But you and your guests have talked about the possibility of changing a personal narrative. Can you
Hmm.
tell us what you've learned about that?
Yeah, we have the ability to change. We don't our stories, our narratives don't define us. We have the
Mhm.
possibility to change it. And again, it ties back to the mindset, believing that you don't have to stay stuck in there. Anything is possible. We are capable as human beings of doing anything we put our mind to. So if you
Yeah,
believe in yourself, if you have that positive mindset and shift your mindset to believe in that, the world opens up. There's so many possibilities for you. You don't have to
yeah,
stay stuck. Your story does not define you. You have the ability. You are the only one who has the ability to change your story. You need
yeah.
to do the work to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I like that because what that reminds me of here in the United States, Henry Ford, is someone on social media, I think it might have been Facebook, posted this
Hmm.
quote that reminds me of what you're saying now. And Henry Ford is credited with saying, if you believe you can, you can. If you believe you
Hmm.
can't, you can't. Both
Yeah.
of them are true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we
100%.
we can't get stuck in in a story for sure. Okay. All right. So yeah, I want to shift gears a little bit.
Yep.
And I want to talk with you about being a podcast host.
Okay.
So what is that like for you to host a podcast show?
It's incredible. I love it. It sets my soul on fire that I get to provide a space for these women to share their stories. I feel so honored that these women have entrusted me with sharing their stories. Some of these women have told me things and they've said that they've never told anyone. They've never shared with anyone before. So that is an incredible honor. I compare it to my guest is driving the car. I'm the passenger, and she's taking me on the ride or on the highway of her life. She's sharing that journey with me. She's invited me into that sacred space to share in that with her. What an
Yeah.
honor that is.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
There aren't enough words to express how incredible it
Yeah.
feels to be able to do that and to also provide the platform to share stories so that we can inspire other women out there.
Mhm,
It's
mhm.
an absolute honor.
Do you remember the day recorded your very first show?
Yep. Hmm.
And what was it like for you?
Nerve-wracking because I'd
Yeah.
never ever interviewed anyone in my entire life. I had the audiovisual background, so I knew about audio recording, audio
Mhm,
production, video production, all of that stuff, but I had never ever interviewed anyone in my life. It was the first time
mhm,
I'd ever interviewed anyone. So it was nerve-wracking. I have not even I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I should go back and listen to my first interviews just to see how far I have come, how much I have grown, how much I have improved since I
yeah.
first started over 4 years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a scary experience. I was
Yeah.
so nervous.
Yeah. 4 years ago, and approximately how many interviews to date?
Today I published my 580th episode.
Wow. Salute to you for
Thank you.
sure. Yeah. And so when did you design your website for your podcast? Do you recall?
Yeah, that was 2020. I want to say late 2021, I think it was.
Mm,
I
yeah.
designed the website. I had been previously hosting the podcast on my photography website, actually,
Mm,
and I thought it's about time that I separate the two. So I think it was late 2021 I started building the
mm.
website for the
Yep.
podcast.
It's an impressive piece of work. Did you
Thank you.
design it yourself or did
Yes, I
you?
did. Yep.
Well, look, I'm going to talk to you after this because I did a new podcast. Anyway, the new website. All right, that's an impressive piece of work.
Thank
You
you.
said you were acquainted with the technology part of it.
Hmm.
So, what kinds of things? Let's shift gears now. I want you to talk to you as a coach, as
Yeah.
a podcast coach.
Yep.
If you talk with someone who's just starting out,
Hmm.
what kinds of things would you invite them to consider in terms of technology?
Technology, you don't have to spend a ton of money on technology. You don't
Mm,
have to be an expert. I think, honestly, and this is the way I did it, I just jumped in and figured it out. But to have
mm,
guidance, yes, of course, absolutely. But it doesn't have to be perfect. I think that's
right.
something that we need to relay to people is that
Yeah.
with anything, it does not have to be perfect. Life's not perfect. It takes
Yeah.
time to hone skills, but don't
Mm,
wait till you have the confidence or don't wait till you
mm,
think that you're good enough to do it. Do it and build the confidence while you're doing it. That's
yeah.
so
And that's
important.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and that's okay to do that to
Yeah,
grow because
absolutely.
yeah, because if I had seen your podcast website when I first started, I would not have started because I would have compared myself then to where you are. You see what I'm saying in 2024, but I started because someone said to me, "Just start it," and I
Yeah,
did.
that's it.
Didn't know
That's
what I
it.
was
That's
doing. Yeah,
exactly
yeah,
it. I
yeah.
just like I said, I'd never interviewed anyone before and I thought, you know what? I'm
Mm,
just going to jump in and figure it out. I'll just do it and
yeah,
keep going and you build your confidence as you do it. The more you do it, the
yeah.
more confident you get and the more you do it, the better you get at it. So
Mhm.
just keep doing, just do the thing. Don't let anyone stop you or hold you back.
Yeah. How did you hone your podcasting skills? You may recall this Larry King, who's now gone,
Hmm.
in America, famous,
Yeah.
interviewer, but he said that he didn't want to learn anything about his guests. Well, not very much about his guests. He just wanted to show up and have a conversation. How about you? I mean, how do you go about getting ready to interview a guest for your show?
I do research. I don't take the Larry King method. I do
Uh-huh.
research. I read up
Yeah.
on my guests. I do a discovery call with every one of my potential guests before they
Mm,
become guests so I can learn a bit about their story and again connect with them on a different level. But I do the
yeah.
research because I create the questions based
Yeah.
on what they send me and I snoop around and see who they are and what they do. I think that
Yeah.
helps to create more connection, a better connection because as a host, you need to, it's not about you. It's got nothing to do with you. It's
Mm,
about your guest. It's
mm,
about shining a light on
mm.
your guest. So
Yeah.
the biggest thing as a host for me, in my opinion, is having my guest feel seen and heard and
Mm,
listened to. That is the
mm,
biggest. I want my guest to walk away from our interview thinking, wow, what an incredible
mm.
interview. Brad really made
Yeah.
me think about some things with these questions.
Mm,
That's what I
mhm,
want my guests to feel, and I want them to feel seen and heard. That's
mhm,
the most
mhm.
important piece as a host. That's your job.
Yeah.
That's your duty.
Yeah. I like it. Put the spotlight on. I like that a lot. So, do you think about your audience as you talk to your guests? Are you thinking that, okay, this is for my audience, or is it just for pulling it out of the guests and just allowing the chips to fall where they may?
Well, I mean, every guest is not going to resonate with every person of your
Mhm,
audience. So sometimes I'm thinking about, oh, I think this will resonate with this group of people, or I think this certain person or a couple people, I know they'll really dig this. It'll be really interesting for them.
mm,
Um, I don't think a ton about it. I'm so engrossed in and engaged in the conversation
yeah.
that I just want to put out good content. I want to put out a good story. I want to put out a good episode. And those who are meant to hear the message will hear the message.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, but some of us, do interviews and we
Hmm.
call it, at the end of the day.
Yep.
But empowerography goes way beyond that. And I just
Yeah.
want to touch up on a couple of those things.
Sure.
For example, what is Empowerography Live? At least the 2024 one. It's gone now. But what was
Yeah.
that about? Empowerography
That
Live.
that Empowerography Live is a women's empowerment conference, online virtual conference that we do every
Yeah.
year. This year we hosted on March 8th, International Women's Day, and we changed the theme. It's a different theme every year. We have
Mm,
anywhere from 26 to 30 women who speak at the conference. It's a one-day event. And the theme changes every year. And my co-host and I create questions that, well, first of all, we picked the theme for the conference, and then we have five panels of women. We have a keynote speaker. We have a woman that kicks the conference off as well. But the topics of discussion for each panel falls under the umbrella of the overarching theme of the entire conference. And
mm,
so my co-host and I create two or three questions to this way it's a much more relaxed environment for our speakers. They don't have to prepare a talk. They just show up, we ask them the questions, and it just the conversation flows. The panel members engage with each other during the
Mm.
conversation, and it's really just to educate, empower, elevate. That's what the event is all about. It's a one-day event, and then we end the event. We give away prizes throughout the course of the day. We stream it live into a private Facebook group for ticket holders. And at the end of the day, when the panels are finished, when all the discussion is done, we have what we call a virtual happy hour. So we bring
Mm.
everyone from the private Facebook group into the Zoom lobby, and we connect with each other. And then what we do is we break the women up into breakout rooms and let them connect and network with each other to finish
Mm.
off the entire day. I think it's a great way to finish the event, to finish the day. They get to network with each other. Audience members get to connect with speakers and speakers with audience members. It's just a really great way to end the day. It's about an hour, hour and a half networking session, and then the day's
Yeah.
done.
Sounds like it must have been an exciting day. So
It
is this an
was.
annual event?
Yes. Yeah. Every year, March 8th. Yeah, this year was the fourth year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I didn't know. I mean, until I looked that you
Yeah.
had all of these offerings, and
Mhm.
also noticed that you present master classes.
Yes,
What
yes.
what are they? Yeah.
Those are based around podcast coaching, podcast, how to be a good podcast guest, how to start your
Mm.
own podcast. Those are the two main focuses because I'm a host, and I think that it's so important for people to learn how to be a good guest. And
Mm.
I think that podcasting is an incredibly powerful medium. You have
Yeah.
access to people you normally wouldn't have access to through the podcasting platform. You can reach so many people. I think
Mm.
podcasting is the new branding. It's an
Yeah.
incredible way to reach your audience. So I think the guesting piece of it is incredibly important. If I could go back, well, maybe I wouldn't change things because of where I am. I wouldn't change my story, but I think guesting is an important place to start as opposed to starting your own podcast. I think start as a guest, learn how to speak into a mic, learn how to be interviewed, learn how to answer questions, learn how to hold a conversation and engage with
Uh-huh.
people before you go into starting your own podcast.
Huh. Do you find it different being on this side of the mic because you're
Absolutely.
usually the person asking the question? It is.
Yeah.
How is it different for you? How is this energy different for you? Not energy, but how is it different for you?
I still get nervous when I'm being interviewed.
Uh,
I mean, and that's something that, I think I've had this conversation a few times. I think it's good to have some nerves because
mm,
then you don't get too overconfident. So
yeah.
before every interview, I have nerves. My stomach is in knots. It's the same thing with my photography. Even after having been shooting for over 30 years, I still get nervous
Mm,
before a photo shoot, before I go into a shoot.
uh-huh.
So I think it's good
Uh-huh.
because it keeps you grounded. So on this side of the mic, it's a little nerve-wracking, to be
Yeah, yeah.
honest.
Uh-huh. Okay, so you have all of these programs,
Hmm.
Empowerigraphy Live, master classes, and the like, but you also do something in addition to individual interviewing one-on-one. I've seen you with like three or four guests at
Oh,
one time.
yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what do you call it?
Yeah.
What is it? What is it about? And what do you try
Yeah.
to do on that platform?
Yeah, that is something that I created called the Empowerment Sessions Unfiltered. And what the
Uh,
basis is for that is to create conversation. As I said, I think conversation is the catalyst for change. This is how we're going to change things if we talk about them. So what I do is I get together myself and four other women, and we collectively decide upon a topic to discuss. No topics are off limits. We can talk about anything you want, but we decide on the topic and then we meet and I open the whole thing with a question to kick the conversation off, and then it just flows. But it's about having those difficult conversations. It's about talking
mm,
about the things that people don't want to talk about. It's about having those uncomfortable conversations because if we don't talk about them, nothing's going to change. We have to
mm,
start having discussions. We have to
mm,
start talking about them, and not to go into the conversation with oh, I'm going to change Stephen's mind about his what he thinks about this topic, but
Mm,
to go in with an open heart, open mind, and open ears to listen to what
mm,
Stephen has to say. I want to hear
mm,
your opinion. How did you arrive at that opinion? Why do you believe that?
mm.
How did you get to this point where this is your belief? This is what I
Yeah.
want. I want to create conversation so that we
Mm.
can move forward.
Yeah. I think I saw one of your programs where people were talking about changes in society. What kinds of things, if you recall,
Mhm.
that women are saying they would like to see improve in our society? Social changes is what I'm trying to get at.
Social changes.
Yeah.
More opportunities for women, of course.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Um, the dismantling of the patriarchy. And I think women working together with men. We need to come together. We need to stop the masculine versus feminine thing
Hmm.
and work together as human beings because that's how
Yeah.
we're going to get stuff. Men have strengths that women don't have, and women have strengths that men don't have. So why don't we come together, unite those strengths? Think of how much more we'll be able to get done in the world. Think of how much louder our voices will be. These types
Hmm.
of things. Equal pay
Yeah.
for women. All of these things. These are big pieces that women want changed. And I think we
Right.
are moving towards change. It just takes time.
Yep. And I want to take a question, Brad, from
Hmm.
your textbook on interviewing.
Hmm.
I heard you ask, oh, I'm going to ask Brad this question. You asked the guest, and you touched upon this earlier, but you asked the
Hmm.
guest this question. You asked, what advice would you give your younger self? And of course, my focus is to you as a
Hmm.
podcast host, and of course, your focus in featuring powerful women. What advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, um, believe in yourself. I
Mm,
struggled a lot with self-confidence, with competition mindset. Don't worry about what other people are doing.
mm,
Believe in yourself. That's how you're going to get things done. That's how you're going to go far is starting with the belief in yourself and surround yourself with a support system and like-minded people who will help lift you up and cheerlead
mm,
you. It's so
mm,
important. Support systems, community, it is absolutely everything in my opinion. But again,
mhm.
it comes back to starting here with self. You have to believe in
Yeah,
yourself first.
yeah, yeah. So, how do you cultivate that? How do you cultivate a feeling of self-confidence?
Continuing to do the work, continuing to work on yourself, continuing to do that thing that you want to get better at, and
Mm,
surrounding yourself with people who will cheerlead you, who will believe
yeah,
in you. Yeah.
right. So you started your podcast a little
Hmm.
before 2020, then you really
Hmm.
got into it in 2020.
Yeah.
Let's say that it's 2015. Do you see yourself starting a podcast show?
No, 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 not
Uh,
not even a thought, not even a blip on the radar. No,
yeah,
that thought never entered my mind. If someone
uh,
had told me in 2015 that I'd be doing a podcast in 2020, I would have told them they're crazy. There's
uh,
no way. That thought
yeah,
never even crossed my mind.
yeah.
Photography was
Is there?
everything. That's who I was.
Yeah, I got you. Is there anything else, Brad, that you want to share with us that we haven't talked about already?
I think just the importance of surrounding yourself with like-minded people, with community, and with believing in yourself. Those don't ever let anyone tell you that you can't do anything because we are capable. We are in a day and
Mm,
age where there are so many possibilities. It's infinite what you can do. If you believe in yourself, if you surround yourself with the right people, you can accomplish anything you want in this world. Anything is
yeah,
possible. It's all at your fingertips. You just have to do the
mm,
work and surround
yeah,
yourself with the people who will believe in you and support you and cheerlead you.
yeah. You mentioned communities, and that
Hmm.
reminds me that you have a very large community on
Hmm.
Facebook. Can you tell us about that? And is that open to anyone who wants
Yeah.
to be a part of it? Can you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that? Mhm.
Yeah, the Empowerography Podcast Lounge. It's a community
Mm,
for like-minded, heart-centered souls who are on the same page as the Empowerography platform, who believe in that. And it's about connection, collaboration, community, and supporting one another. I have seen so many collaborations come out of that community between people that didn't even know each other before the
Mhm.
Empowerography platform, before they got connected through the Empowerography platform. So, yeah, it's open to anybody who is of that same mindset that
Yeah.
wants to help make a difference, that wants to help expand the platform, who wants to help grow the mission and the movement, and who is looking for support.
Yeah. Look, could you give us some pointers so that I can use it in the show notes to make sure people can find the Empowerography Lounge on Facebook?
Yeah, it's the Empowerography Podcast Lounge on Facebook. Just type that in and search it, and
Mhm.
there'll be some membership questions you have to answer before you can be admitted into the
Yeah.
group. It's really a great community to be part of,
Yeah.
and to see all of these connections
Yeah.
and the collaborations that have come out of it is just incredible. I'm so
Yeah.
honored and proud of it.
I was impressed that the community has grown. I mean, it's grown for me like wildfire. So how
Yeah.
did you grow it to this number? How did you get it here?
Well, it took time. I mean, I started the
Mm.
community in December of 2020, so it's been worked on, and it's
Uh,
about creating that relationship and that connection with my
yeah.
guests who are part of the community, who have been on the show, but just fostering that connection with people, just being
Yeah.
authentic and meeting people. And of course, members of the group invite friends into the group who are of like mind. So it's
Yeah.
it's it grows collaboratively. It's not all me, believe me.
Yeah.
It's I know that none of this, like the podcast, the community, none of it's possible without all of the people who have helped me get here. It's not
Yeah.
me. It's all of us.
Yeah.
It's a collective effort.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm glad that you're doing what you're doing, and
Thank you.
I'm grateful that you said yes when I invited you to be on the show. Thank you so much, but it has been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Stephen. It's been an absolute honor and pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate you.
Okay. Well, you have been listening to the Possibility Action Network podcast. Our guest today has been Brad Walsh. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton. Until next time, good day. You are not alone, just keep on.